Welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. It's Happy New Year time. It's January 1st. When you hear this message, you are going to be in 2026. It is going to be the new year. And I hope you had a wonderful time with your family, with your friends during the holidays. I had a really good time actually, but I was sick, so that wasn't so great. But it was still great to be around loved ones and to relax a little bit before going into the new year. I like to have a new year the traditional time, according to this calendar on January 1st, but then I like to also have a new year around my birthday, which is kind of around the mid year part, where I do a whole new Happy New Year ritual for myself where I just look at where things are, what I've planned, and decide if I'm going on the right path and if there's anything that I want to change, if I want to pivot, if there's anything new. So, first of all, I want to say, forgive my voice because, like I said, I was sick. Um, and this morning, my kettle gave out on me, which no bueno. Did not like that. So, I have to go out today and get a new kettle. I'm also a coffee drinker, but because I have a sore throat, I like to have, the honey and the lemon and the garlic and the turmeric and all of the things in my tea. And so that was quite disappointing. Of course, I could, figure out a way to boil the water, but I like a kettle. So that's the happenings for today. But I do want to talk about New Year's, New Year planning, not so much New Year's resolutions. I mean, if you have New Year's resolutions, great. But I like to look at creating a plan for myself for the year. And I find that to be really important because it gives me some structure and some guidance and some direction, so that I'm heading towards something. I like that. I like heading towards a goal or a few goals. I'm not the one who's just passively moving around throughout the earth. That's not my thing. At times I would think, oh, is it more zen if I'm just rudderless kind of. And it's like, no, for me it's not. In fact, that's anxiety inducing and I don't want any part of it. And planning has always worked for me. And so why was I fighting it? You get older, you figure these things out, and you're like, you know what I mean? Stick to what you know and what you're good at, and double down on what you're good at, right? So, what happened over the break, though, was, and not that the break's over, but was a little jarring. So, I kind of knew this coming in that my eldest, who's away at college, has decided that he wants to take some time off, and he wants to, take a year off and get a job and do something that he feels is more meaningful, than attending classes. And some of this is due in part to the fact that, school is getting a little challenging, it's a little harder, and it's also, sometimes a little boring, let's not lie. And so I think that is kind of piquing his curiosity. He's also has some different interests than he had going into school. And so I think he wants to explore those outside of the classroom. And he's also uh, influenced, obviously, by social media, right? And so a lot of people his age, he's 20, by the way, are it's seemingly doing amazing things out into the world, right? Like, unlike when I was growing up, we couldn't see what every 20-year-old was doing. We didn't have access to that, right? So it was only the folks that were in your little sphere. And most of the folks in my sphere at that time were at school. So that's what we did. We went to school. So it wasn't so glamorous, that you could potentially do something else. If you weren't in school, then it didn't look glamorous at all. In fact, it looked like hard work, right? And that, it didn't seem like it was going to work out for you if you weren't in school. So for him, though, he's seeing another world through social media, through Instagram, through TikTok, through YouTube, that people are living these really full lives and they're not in classrooms, learning about things that you may be interested in or may not be so interested in, right? And so there's this desire to take this year off and get a job. Now, my initial response to that was, I bristled. I was like, what? Like, absolutely not. Like, my initial response was like, why in God's name would you do that? And I think I did that because of my own personal upbringing. Like, if somebody stopped going to school, the chances of them going back was very, very slim. And it was highly frowned upon by, my parents, my friends' parents, because they didn't go to university, right? So when your parents don't go, they're like, why would you squander this opportunity? Why would you even take the chance of not finishing? This education that you're getting is your ticket out. So you do not, by any means, press pause on going to school or taking time away from school, like, because there was that great fear that you wouldn't return. And so my initial response to him saying this, I was like, oh God, no, because that's what I had seen. That's what I had heard. That's what I was accustomed to. But then I had to take a step back and I realized a couple of things. So first of all, that's an unrealistic fear that he won't go back. I mean, if he chooses not to go back, he won't go back. That's clear. But the reasons why people didn't go back is not his situation. Like, first of all, he would have the emotional support to go back. He would have the guidance on how to go back and what that would be like. He would have the financial support to go back. He also has folks who have already gone through the system. Both of his parents have graduated from college. Both of his parents have been, away at school. Both of his parents have been through that experience. And so we get it, right? Very different from my parents that didn't understand it. They were like, oh, this is kind of what they do, but they didn't go away to school. They didn't, they weren't on campus. They weren't living with friends. They weren't trying to navigate this new world. So in that capacity. So the fear of the unknown for them, for someone to even suggest taking time off was like overwhelming. And so I had to realize that I didn't have the same concerns that they would have had for me if I had made this decision. And he has a different set of circumstances that wouldn't necessarily make it that much more challenging or difficult for him to go back. Secondly, the school has a program that actually encourages that they have a paid internship, that they take this time off, and they can be for 12 months to 16 months, but they can go and get a job. The school has a lot of resources where they can find a job that's of interest to them, but they can also bring a position to the school and get it approved, and then they can do this paid internship as well. And he has the flexibility to do this anywhere in Canada, anywhere in America, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in the world, right? And so there are a lot of opportunities available to him, and he himself can do a lot of the groundwork to create these opportunities. So over the break, we've been talking a lot about this, and I am watching him and how he is approaching this, and it is very different than how I would approach something. So basically what I'm seeing is the initiative that he's taking is slow, very slow going by my standards, and that concerns me because obviously, like anything else, there's a deadline, right? There is a deadline. So if you're planning on starting this position at the very latest next September, when you would have to go back to school, you kind of got to get things going in order to secure a position so that in September, you're not going to be just flailing in the wind, because part of the stipulation is, hey, if you don't get the job, you go back to school. Like there's still some parameters around here. I'm encouraging this experience. However, if you're not doing what is necessary to create the experience, then you're going to have to go back to what you were doing before, which apparently you don't want to do right now. That's why you want to take the break. So I find it very fascinating to watch this, because I know that, of course, we're all different. However, when I know that I want something, I almost become obsessed with it. I consume every bit of information about that thing. I do it voraciously. I read everything. I listen to everything. I just consume it all, and I do it quickly. Okay. I invest all of my time, my energy, my money, even when I had very little money. I knew that, and I think this is what makes me such a good investor. It's because I look for the return on the investment before I make the investment. I know what I want to get out of it, and I assure myself that I'm going to get out of it what I'm putting into it. So, in terms of my time, my energy, my money, I'm investing into me. Right. And I'm getting all of the resources that I can garner about that thing. Right. And I make sure I get a return on my investment, and I do it quickly. I don't hesitate. I don't hum and haw. I do not waste time. So although, there's this idea and curiosity about this experience that he needs to create, right? I find that the path to doing so is very slow by my standards, of course. This is, and it's trepidatious. And it reminds me a lot about people when they're talking about their future and their money or retirement or creating wealth. There is this deadline, right? Ultimately, there is a deadline. Similar to his deadline. Like, okay, look, September, you got to have this job at the very latest. You could start a little earlier in the summer, sure, whatever. It can be, this program can be 12 to 16 months, so you could start it anytime that school ends. But by September, you got to have something locked in. There's a deadline. And so it seems far away, but we all know, not so much at 20, but we all know that things happen really quickly. Like, we're already in 2026. How many times have you turned around and been like, I can't believe we're in 2026. Like, what happened to last year? What happened to 5 years ago? We're almost going into our 6th year since COVID. Like, crazy. Time moves quickly. So I see that a lot of times when I talk to folks who are talking about, well, they want to build their money for retirement, or they want to create wealth for themselves, there's this thought and idea and curiosity, but the movement towards what needs to be done is very slow. So much so that decades pass at times, and then there's this panic. And what I love to do in my life is eliminate all of the that are within my control, all of the reasons that would cause me to panic or to have regrets. So I know that one of the ways in which I can reduce those instances is by planning. Planning doesn't eliminate all of the things that would come up, all of these circumstances that I couldn't predict. But what it does is it allows me to, because I've laid a foundation and a groundwork, it allows me to pivot. It allows me to course correct. It allows me to take a different path because I've laid the foundation of said path, right? So the shift may not feel as stark or as abrupt, right? It's kind of like taking a slight bend when you're driving around a corner versus having to and do a hard turn, right? It smooths out those rough, hard, abrupt turns and makes them so much easier to transition and makes life a lot simpler, so that because I can eliminate all of that panic and strife and anxiety and confusion and upset and disappointment because of planning. I believe that with my whole heart. It doesn't raise my cortisol levels because I did not plan as much as I possibly could. So I know that going into 2026, I am going to provide him with guidance and support. He's going to have access to my experience, which is now called wisdom. He's going to have access to my connections. And all of that is going to help him when he's making these decisions to create this opportunity for himself for 2026. And that's similar to what I provide my clients, right? They get the guidance, they get the support, they get my experience, they get my connections when they're thinking about planning this life for themselves. But the most important thing that I believe that I infuse in my clients and that I will infuse in him is the confidence that the path that he's choosing or that they're choosing for themselves is the right path for them. Because they have to live with the path that they're creating. But more importantly, they're going to feel confident about that path because they're going to develop the skills that's going to lay that foundation for them so that they can have those opportunities to pivot or course correct, or they're going to have the opportunities, right? That is what the planning does. It provides opportunities. So when I'm talking to him about, okay, so how are we going to do this? What kind of jobs are you interested in? What is this internship going to look like? Where do you want to live? Do you want to be in the country? Do you want to be in the East Coast, the West Coast, the South, the Midwest? Do you want to be in another country? Like, what does this look like? And being able to open up your mind and actually talk about what you truly want. Now, for a 20-year-old, and this is a generalization, but for this particular 20-year-old, it's pretty easy for him to say, oh, I want this, I'm interested in this, I want to try this, and da-da-da. He's really open to saying that. Oftentimes, when you've been beat up a bit with life and you've gone beyond 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 even, folks seem a lot less open to talking about what they really want. Right? They get a little scared because they've had disappointments along the way. So they're not as confident to say, this is actually what I want. This is the kind of opportunity that I want to create for myself. And this is the plan to get it. I find that there's a lot of resistance to being completely open about the plans that folks want for their lives. And that's a shame. I mean, I talked to a woman the other day who's a 43-year-old mother of two, and she said to me that she wanted to retire at 55. That's 12 years from now. Totally feasible, completely possible, right? And she also said that, at 55, it's not going to be, I'm going to stop working cold turkey. She said, I want to reduce the amount of hours I work. I might want to pivot. I may want to, do something else. I just don't want to have to go 40 hours hardcore, 40 hours plus every single week, by the time I'm 55. And I asked her some questions about this goal and, what that would look like for her at 55. Like, could she envision herself in this position at 55? What would she do on a daily basis? What would her life look like? And it's so interesting that I guess when she realized that she had described what she was saying and what she really and truly wanted, and she'd said it out loud, she quickly gave herself an out by saying, well, if it doesn't work out, then maybe at 60. Not once did any of the questions that I asked her had any planted seeds of doubt that it were impossible for her to achieve this goal. There wasn't anything in there that said, oh, well, you don't have enough money. In fact, it was very reassuring that she could actually do this in 12 years with the right plan. But saying it aloud, it's almost like she said, let me push this back 5 additional years to 60 in order to prevent disappointment. So instead of saying, I may be disappointed at 55 if I don't do this, so let me just make it 60 now, she's almost preempting her disappointment. She's letting herself down ahead of time. She's already deciding that, this isn't something I can do in 12 years. Now it's going to be 17 years. So her initial 12-year goal that was completely feasible with the right plan, I can see it in my head. It was so simple, right? But the fear of doing the plan, the fear of saying what she actually wanted and the life that she wanted to have at 55 could potentially keep her from doing anything at all. Thus, not having the life at 55, not having the life at 60, and being upset that for the next, who knows how many years, 12, 17 years and beyond, that she wasn't able to give herself that. I think that going into 2026, I know I have a lot of plans, many of which involve money, some require money, but none of them are wishes that possibly or potentially I could do something because of the lack of money. And I want everyone listening to understand that the financial independence that you desire starts with your plans. I didn't know what exactly I would have been doing in 2026 back in 2016, right? I didn't know precisely what I would be focused on for this year. But I knew in 2016 that I didn't want to work forever. I didn't want to work the corporate job that I was working forever that was slowly killing me, taking me away from my kids, making me incredibly unhealthy and exhausted. I knew I didn't want that. So I knew I had to create a plan for myself that would allow me to escape that life, not only escape it, but also create another life, create opportunities for myself. And you have to be brave enough to say that out loud. Like a 20-year-old, like my son. He's brave enough to say it out loud. And then you've got to be brave enough to put that plan together and put it into action. I think that when you're going into a new year or going into any stage at life, it doesn't necessarily have to be a new year. I know I'm going into a new year in 2026 and my second child's going to be leaving the nest. So I'm going to be completely an empty nester. So it really feels like a big deal, right? By the end of the year, pretty much the last few months of the year, it's going to be like, oh, there are no kids in the house, right? That's going to feel like a big deal. So this year is a little bit monumental to me in that regard. But I think that regardless of what's going on for you, whether it's a big monumental year or just another year around the sun, you have to be intentional about it. You have to be intentional about your time, your energy, what you consume, your health, your relationships, and your money. You have to be intentional about all of it. Because when you're intentional and when you're able to create the life that you want, to say it aloud, and then find all the resources that can help you create it, then you want to be in the company of the folks who've done the thing that you want to do. And you want to spend time in their sphere because you want to understand how they think, how they operate, how they move throughout the world. How is it that they are able to do what you want to do? How is it that they've done it, right? What did they do? What was so unique or special or not special at all? What are the skills that they have that allow them to plan this life out for themselves and get the things that you are interested in for your life? I love that I have a 20-year-old here who's wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and hasn't been beat up at all by life and is so eager to get started, right? To create an opportunity. Yeah, of course. I'm like, let's go. Let's light a fire under your ass. You got to get started. There's a deadline, right? But the interest is there. The desire is there. Now we just have to pick up the pace. And I think that's the same for many of you. The interest is there. The desire is there. But you got to pick up the pace. There is a deadline. We can't wander aimlessly forever hoping that we will start to build our net worth and it'll start to grow, and that we'll be comfortable with our money and we'll start to have enough, and enough will last long enough, and that we'll be able to live the full life that we envision. It doesn't happen without creating a plan. It just won't. So I encourage you, I urge you this year to find the people who've done what you want to do and be in their company. Make it a point to be in their company. Because remember, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So go spend time with the people who have done what you want to do. It's kind of like osmosis. Just being in their aura, being in their space, that way of thinking and moving and operating will rub off on you. You will take it in. You will. You'll absorb it. And suddenly you will start to see the world differently. And you will start to see what's possible for you, even if you didn't start from the starting place of this person or that person or that person. You will start to see what's possible from this starting place right now, January 1st, 2026. And I don't want you to discount yourself if you're like, well, I've never been a planner and I don't know how to start and I don't know where to plan, how to plan things. No, I'm not going to let you off the hook with that. You can find someone who can help you, whether it's your health journey, your organizational skills, your relationships. There are people who are experts who can help you get what it is that you want. But you, have to be brave enough to say it out loud. And you have to be able and ready to invest in yourself. You're so worth it. I don't understand why you wouldn't do it. And yeah, you don't have to be 20 to do this either. Because if you're breathing, if there's breath in your body, and you still have allowed yourself, as you should, the ability to create a life that you want that'll make you happy, then go find your people. And if it's about building wealth, it's about paying off debt, if it's about creating investments and learning how to invest or understanding what your investments are doing or hitting that $1 million or more, then yeah, I'm here. I've done it. I've done it. And I've done it for other women as well. Look, you guys know that my goal, I want to get at least, 100 women to $1 million net worth. That is something that I want to do. I am not even close to my goal, folks. I have done it for 10 women who have $1 million net worth, but I want to do it for 100. Okay? I do. And I think that is important because I think that once you have that financial flexibility, you're able to do so much more with your life where money isn't always the predictor of whether you can or can't do something. So let's create it for 2026. Let's figure out what that plan is going to be. Let's make it. Let's get started on it. And you will be fascinated by where you'll be this time next year. Trust me. You may not have everything mapped out, but you will be amazed at what you could do in 1 year. People so underestimate what they can do in a year. And what happens is they put it off and put it off and put it off. And then decades go by and it's like, damn, I didn't do this. But you can do so much in 1 year. It's incredible. So if you're interested in getting started this year, 2026, getting that financial independence and that financial confidence that you need so that you could create a full life for yourself, then we got to get some competence. We got to get some skills. And I'm here to help you. So leave a link in the show notes for you to book some calls. I'm booking up pretty quickly, but if you're serious, then there's space for you. There's definitely room for you. All right. Have a great week. I want you guys to stick around for this entire year. I'm going to be sharing all the things that's going on in my life. I'm going to be sharing things with their permission, of course, that's going on in my clients' lives. And I would just really love for you to share this podcast with other women who are trying to create a life for themselves where money isn't stopping them from doing the things that they love. All right. I look forward to talking to you for the many Thursdays of 2026. Take care.